This morning, Republicans fresh off their national convention, a lot of momentum now from Milwaukee. We have a new face on, Texas Congresswoman Monica de la Cruz, to talk about the strategy ahead for the GOP as Democrats remain in disarray. For Texans, the most important moment may have been Ted Cruz's speech. But did he reach independent voters as he runs in a close race for a third term? What will it take for the left to recover from their tailspin? Democratic members of Congress avoiding cameras this week, but Texas strategist Matt Engel talks about what has to happen and when. Plus, state lawmakers finally start to talk tough about CenterPoint Energy. How did a small hurricane catch Houston off guard? And does leadership at the utility need to change? Questions we have for Harris County Commissioner Rodney Ellis.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning. I'm Jason Whiteley. What a week in politics. Let's start with the headlines, though. Before J.D. Vance became the vice presidential nominee and even a U.S. senator, he originally worked for Texas Senator John Cornyn. Vance was a legal clerk for Cornyn. That was back in 2011 when he was still a student at Yale Law School. The other day, Cornyn called Vance a smart guy who is incredibly well-spoken. Governor Abbott is on the defensive for being out of the country and not returning to Texas during Hurricane Beryl recently. Abbott was in Taiwan, in Japan, and in South Korea on an economic development trip. Instead of returning to Texas when the hurricane hit and 2.7 million Texans lost power, Abbott stayed in Asia. He said Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick led efforts here appropriately. Critics, though, suggest the trip really wasn't that important since Abbott did not really come back with any tangible deals for the state. And Texas is once again sitting on billions of dollars in extra cash. The question is, will state lawmakers give it back to taxpayers? Glenn Hager there, the state comptroller, said the Texas legislature is going to have about an extra $20 billion to work with when it returns to Austin in January. Some lawmakers have already told me they want to cut property taxes next year even further. Others, though, want to spend that cash in places that they say the state has long underfunded. Let's start this morning, though, with Republicans coming off the national convention with a lot of momentum right now. We're going to talk to Congresswoman Monica de la Cruz in just a moment, but we have to begin with the crisis inside the growing Democratic Party, the growing crisis, rather. What is Joe Biden going to do? Democratic members of Congress are avoiding cameras this week, so we reached out to a veteran Democratic strategist who's very connected. Matt Engel splits his time between Texas and D.C. to run the Lone Star Project. Matt, welcome to the program here. What do Democrats need to do right now to steady the ship?
Well, they need to stay focused and talk about the real task. And the real task here is to defeat Donald Trump and defeat Ted Cruz. You're usually not winning when you're talking about yourself or you're having disagreements within your own party. So it's important to keep our eye on the ball. Donald Trump's the worst president of our lifetime. He's running against the best president of our lifetime. And Ted Cruz is a failed senator. That's what Democrats need to be talking about here in Texas.
Can Biden survive this, though? Every day, it's drip, 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 drip from inside the Democratic Party. Is he going to be on the ticket, do you think?
I don't know, but what I do know, it's his choice. You're not going to push him. He's got to make a choice. He's deserved the right to make the choice. Democrats are not like Republicans. Republicans are the bend over, kneel down, kiss the ring party. Democrats, we fight amongst ourselves. We don't immediately defer to others. That's a Republican deal. Democrats, we are strong, we stand on our own, we make our argument, but Joe Biden's earned the right to make the decision for himself, and I think he will here pretty quickly.
You know a lot of people, your phone has a lot of contacts in it. What are people telling you?
There's a lot of worry but they're more worried about the fact that there's chatter. There's an understanding of people who followed politics is that now's the time that we need to be talking about our common interests, our common goals, bringing our coalition together and talking about why the Democratic choices are better than the Republican choices. That's the worry. It's less that than how Joe Biden performed on any given day. It's the notion that it's time for us to come together.
Are you concerned?
I'm a little concerned, but again, we've got over 100 days to go here, and we have a real danger within our society. The Republican Party now has totally collapsed to Trumpism. They've totally collapsed to a party that wants to cut Social Security. They want to eliminate a woman's right to make a choice about her body. For goodness sakes, they're for forced birth. They want 12-year-olds who are raped to be forced to carry that baby to term. They want to surrender Ukraine to Putin and destroy NATO. So there are real dangers. The most important thing for Democrats to come together for is to make sure that our country's safe and we've got a democracy going forward.
If Biden stays in the race and runs for re-election, what does that do to down ballot races?
Well, it means that we've got to pay attention, but I'm always paying attention to down ballot races. I don't care how good the year is. You got to make sure that Democrats here in Texas know that we've got good candidates running for county sheriff and for state rep. You know, we just polled over in Tarrant County after the debate and found that Tarrant County is as close to a bellwether county as we have in Texas. And Colin Aldridge's running ahead of Ted Cruz in Tarrant County, and also the Republicans have a terrible failed sheriff over there. So that's very important down ballot race. So I think if we come together quickly, keep our campaigns going, pick up a little bit momentum, we can be just fine.
Matt, what are you watching for in the coming week?
Clarity. That we need to see whether or not what the signals are out of the White House and the people surrounding the president. There needs to be either clear that he's in or that they're making the moves to hand it off to Kamala Harris. That's the most important thing, because again, we need to stop focusing on ourselves, stop focusing on our differences, and focus on the most important thing, and that's stopping the Republicans from destroying our democracy.
Matt, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's bring in the roundtable to talk about the politics of this. And oh my, is there a lot of politics to talk about. Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. I Am Mitra has this week off. Bud, President Biden plans to resume campaigning this week. More people are calling on him to step aside inside the party. What do Texas Democrats want, and what's realistic?
Well, I think Texas Democrats want him to stay in overall. They want either him or Kamala Harris to be on the top of the ticket. But let's look at what the Democrats need at this point. They need money in the campaign to run against Donald Trump's probably ahead by, if he's not ahead by more than 8 points after his convention, he's in trouble. He should be ahead by 8 to 10 points right now. They need money to run against Trump. They need a message besides read Project 2025, and they need some enthusiasm. They need somebody who will fire up the base, get the voters out. Joe Biden still is not quite the candidate for that.
And Bernadine, we have seen for weeks, you and I have talked about it in the newsroom, drip, 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 drip from the Democrats. How does this end?
Jason, first I want to correct you. It's no longer drip, drip, drip. Now it's flooding. I mean, I'm seeing something that I have never seen in politics. And that's where you have a party that's actually going out and attacking their leader. Biden is the leader, and one of the things that the Democrats definitely need to do is stop it's no longer infighting. See, they're publicly fighting. How can you build momentum when you don't have momentum? Something has got to happen where the Democratic Party has to come together, because it's amazing. The Republicans are together. I mean, there's no cracks.
Yeah.
There are no cracks.
Yeah.
So the Democrats need to do something. If Biden isn't going, then they need to get together and determine how to win.
Is that possible, though, with Biden still in the race, Bud?
The Republicans are together, but the Republicans have only won the popular vote once in the last 36 years. The Democrats win the popular vote almost all the time. The Democrats are the ones who have more voters if they can turn them out. Donald Trump still has not hit 50% in enthusiasm. There is an opening for Democrats.
But he's never encountered what the Democrats are doing now.
Indeed so.
He's never encountered that.
Uncharted times that we're in here. Back in just a moment here. We have a lot more ahead, including this. When we come back this morning, Congresswoman Monica de la Cruz. Just after addressing the RNC, she sits down for an interview with us about an opportunity that Democrats are missing. And straight talk from Houston this morning. Harris County Commissioner Rodney Ellis on what the state needs to do right now to prepare Houston for the next hurricane. Inside Texas Politics, back in just a moment. Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. Republicans are starting this week with two things the Democrats don't have: unity and momentum. Our next guest is making her first appearance with us. We spoke to Congresswoman Monica de la Cruz just after she addressed the RNC. The Republican from McAllen says there is one opportunity Texas Democrats are missing. Congresswoman, welcome to the program. The RNC has created a lot of momentum for Republicans, but Election Day, as you know, is still 4 months away. How can conservatives maintain that momentum for the next 4 months?
Well, thank you for having me on today. And it's not just about a great convention, it's about what's happening in America that will still be happening 4 months from now. What are those things? Number one, millions of illegal immigrants who have entered our country. 350 known terrorists on the terror watch list that have been caught at our southern border. Those things are not going to go away, as well as inflation. Americans are having trouble living day to day, putting food on their table. And I don't think there's anything that the Democratic Party can do in 4 months that will change that.
Congresswoman, you said when Democrats focus on Trump's rhetoric, they really miss an opportunity to actually reach Latino voters. What do you mean by that?
The reason I say that is because they're only focused on President Trump. At the end of the day, what Latinos want to see are policies that help them feed their families. You see, Hispanics tend to have bigger families. That means more mouths to feed. So when they go to the grocery store and they're buying their salsa and aguacates, what they find is their grocery cart cost twice as much. And these are the things that matter to Hispanics, not name calling.
Are Republicans concerned, do you think, about running against somebody other than Joe Biden?
We're not looking at Joe Biden. We'll let Democrats fight amongst themselves and talk about Joe Biden and who's going to replace them. At the end of the day, our winning ticket is President Trump and Vance. It is great economic policies that will put money in the pockets of Americans, help revitalize small businesses in America, and secure our border. That's what we will continue to talk about from now until November.
You have a tremendous cash advantage over your Democratic opponent, Michelle Vallejo. Do you expect the National Democratic Party to get involved in this race?
Right now, I am on their hit list, but that's not stopping us from continuing to work in our communities, to shake hands and create policies that help communities like mine. So we're going to focus again on putting local first. And I think that at the end of the day, that's how we're going to win.
Congresswoman, thank you for the time from Milwaukee. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Texas leaders are finally starting to talk tough about CenterPoint Energy. Two storms over the last couple of months have knocked out power to millions of people in Southeast Texas. We're mainly talking about Houston, the energy capital of the world that cannot keep the lights on. So does CenterPoint Energy need a change in leadership? Harris County Commissioner Rodney Ellis gives us some straight talk this morning from his office in Houston. Commissioner, let me ask you just right out of the gate here. How do you rate the state's response to Hurricane Beryl?
The state's response was clearly inadequate this go around. I mean, the paperwork should have taken the course that it normally took. Knowing that something is coming, the paperwork should have been signed and submitted to the White House just in case and amended later. But you know what? I won't even get hung up on that. But look, to the extent the state regulatory body does not have power, they ought to ask the legislature to give it to them. The governor's office ought to put together a package. You can't solve all of this before the next storm. Even if you called a special session and went in next week, you need to figure out what to do, and you look at best practices around the country. But the regulatory piece is a big part of it. But if I was CenterPoint, which was your question, I'd do as much as I could to get this power back on, and do as much as I could to prepare for the next storm coming this season. And if I had to spend money out of my bottom line to do it, I would do it, because I think the heat's going to stay on. This is going to have a tremendous impact on our ability to attract people and industries to Texas, not just Harris County and Houston, but to Texas.
Does CenterPoint need a change in leadership?
I don't know. I know there have been changes in the leadership over the last few years. And I just think that changing leadership in and of itself would not be enough. What needs to be done is improve processes that are in place. And that takes an investment. It means money. And don't just feel like you can just send it all to the ratepayers. Look at how much you've been taking out and how much you invested in your business model. Look, in some ways, you ought to feel lucky to have had a regulated monopoly, not just for CenterPoint, but you take the one where you are.
Sure.
That's a regulated monopoly as well. Sometimes competition makes us better. I have to go through one every 4 years to hold on to this job I have.
Houston has experienced two very serious storms that knocked out electricity over the last few months. These are massive swaths of electrical customers that have lost power here. Are you concerned that these two recent storms might at some point impact economic development? Because these headlines have gone nationwide.
Harris County is larger than 25 states. 5 million people in this county alone. As Houston goes, Texas goes. As Harris County goes, Texas goes. So for my friends in North Texas, around the state, don't just think this is just a Houston problem. We're the energy capital of the world. Yes, it's going to have an impact. I think that's why you're going to see state leaders willing to hopefully make some investment on their end. You're going to see local leaders making noise. That's basically what we can do. I have a slightly larger bully pulpit than the average person on the street. So does the mayor of Houston, council members, my colleagues and the county judge. But the pressure is going to be on the state because they control the PUC. And at a time when state government is doing so much to limit the power they will have on the local level, okay, big fellas, you got it. It's yours. What are you going to do with it?
Sure, it's always good to talk to you. I appreciate you taking the call.
Thank you. Stay on this one.
And we certainly will. The roundtable is ready when we come back here.
This is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley.
All right, let's bring in the roundtable now to talk about the headlines. And there are a lot of things to discuss considering what we just watched over the last week, from the attempted assassination to the RNC. Bud Kennedy is back with us from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA here in Dallas. But let's start with the Republican Party's new message. The GOP is no longer the party of corporate America and country club goers. We saw Hulk Hogan rip off his shirt on stage. Kid Rock performed. Dana White from the UFC introduced Donald Trump. Clearly, the GOP is now the party of the working man.
The working man in America. And what's amazing is not just the for the working man, but also the harsh, antagonistic attitude toward business, attacks on the Chamber of Commerce. You know, the chamber's out, the Teamsters are in. You know, there were references to corporate pigs in one of the speeches. This is not the Republican Party that we've seen most of our lives. Some of this started, you know, Al Gore lost a few of the working men in the Democratic Party. They felt like he was a little bit too intellectual. But then Donald Trump comes along and just gives rise to this whole wrestling fan mentality of the whole party.
And you got to give it to Trump because he can reach new audiences, Bernadine.
You know what? This is the party that wants to win. However it has to win, that's what they're going to do. And they understand that they must reach beyond their base.
But do they still, if they're reaching out and attracting the new, working man, part of the electorate here, are they losing someone as well?
No, they're not going to lose that base. I don't care what they do and they're not even taking a risk because former President Trump's base is there for lifetime. And as we have seen, they're more with him since the attempt on his life. They see that as a divine thing that's showing them that he's the candidate. No, what he needs to do is bring in independents and some of those Democrats who are sort of at this point just tired of their parties infighting, and bring back some of those Republicans. Now, he might not be able to do that, but he is not going to lose any.
And a lot of people, Bud, were thinking on Thursday night with his unity speech that might have happened, but he waved right off of teleprompter, went into his familiar talking points.
He did. Almost the last hour of the speech probably got Joe Biden thinking maybe I could stay in the race. It's like he lost so much energy and momentum in the last hour, and they said if there's going to be another couple of months of this, the Democrats might have a chance.
Let me ask you briefly what Bernadine said too. I haven't seen any of corporate America peeling away from Trump, really. Does he lose anything as he brings in this new part of the party?
Not at all, because there's nowhere else to go. Democrats have not been able to capitalize. They can't lure business in. They're too far into the progressive movement to move back into the middle. So he doesn't lose business. He doesn't lose the religious conservatives because, first of all, they're convinced that he's carrying out biblical prophecy, and last week only confirmed that. And second of all, he just looks at him and says, hey, I give you all the Supreme Court.
And Jason, that campaign at this point is in the mode of bringing in people. They're not at a risk of losing anyone. See, they need to bring in people into that campaign and into the Republican Party, and that's what this campaign is doing. Now, if you look at former President Trump, who went back to his talking points, people don't expect for him to change. But you can clearly see that the campaign is going in a different direction, and in that direction is we need to broaden the tent. And that's what they're doing.
But about a minute left here. Let's talk about another speaker at the RNC, Ted Cruz, the senator running for his third term here in Texas. He spoke and he said a number of things, but one was, my victory here is not certain. And polls show it is a close race here against Colin Allred for a third term in the Senate. How did that play with undecided voters, though?
I don't think undecided voters were watching. I think if you look at the numbers of Republicans were watching, every Republican in America was watching, but that was red meat for the base. I don't think undecided voters were watching Ted Cruz.
Bernadine, last 30 seconds.
I don't think that he made any difference in that because while that issue is important, it's not. They want to see what they're going to do with their choice, their ability to choose for themselves. They're looking at different issues than that border issue, which is definitely big within the base. But he is running a tight race in Texas.
And now all eyes are on President Biden and Democrats, so that's the big thing we'll be watching for this week, guys. Thanks so much. We appreciate you watching as well. We're back again next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics and hope you can join us then. Take care.